Welcome to the Motor City. Its decaying monuments are all that is left of our fading morale. They stand as remnant symbols of the passing of our once great and powerful civilization. At times, my subconscious state is briefly disrupted by the sounds of mechanical assembly as a steel press echoes through the architecture above. The recession had brought the rise of the machine into political power. The corporate computers had calculated that Detroit could rise up out of the darkness by investing in a new form of nanotechnology. One that would fuse man and machine. The hallowed factories of the former Big Three were once again in a symphony of motion. Human beings were being stripped of their cellular structures and fed to the dominatrix of metal and wire. The frescoes on the walls of the Detroit Institute of Art were visionary in 1933. Diego Rivera had depicted industry and technology as the indigenous culture of Detroit. Little did they know it was a silent warning of what was to unfold. Detroit would become ground zero for the military-led experiments that would ensue. The water had become blackened by the sweat, blood, and oil from the atrocities that were being conducted south of 8 Mile Road. Prisoners and former military combatants were being shipped into the Riverfront Detention Center in Windsor. It is here that I have been detained as I await my second round of nano-dissection across the river. I recall fishing the Detroit River as a child. It was rare to catch anything other than catfish or the odd sheephead, but it always made for a nice afternoon by the water. While casting our lines from the shore, my grandfather would tell me stories of how the locals would pass by the river in 1967. Detroit, burning in the background. People believed in their rights back then, and they fought for it, without question, until they were taken away. The U.S. involvement in Vietnam had given birth to new fears and mistrust of authority. Fathers, sons, and brothers were ordered to face their fate, and technology played the messenger as it delivered the horrors right to our homes. War and violence were always followed with times of peace, and a great many would not live to see those simpler times again. The days of my youth were bright and colorful, as the 1980s brought a decade of technological distractions to help society forget about the atrocities of the Vietnam War. There were talking cars, time machines, transforming toys, video games, machines to test our memory, and machines for spelling. Little did they know that it would eventually spell out their doom. The Gulf War brought our fascination with technology to a new level. The media saturated us with images of its raw power. Violence had been dissected from war, as we watched from the safety of our living rooms, without any concern of how far things would eventually go. It wasn't long before scientists had discovered dark matter within the black holes of our solar system. Once they had realized that this dark matter was capable of bending the space-time continuum, they had to harness it for themselves. When the Alberta oil sands dried up, the human-controlled government had taken it upon themselves to create their own underground black hole. It was similar to the one built by the Swiss that swallowed half of Europe in December of 2012. The correlation between dark matter and time travel had opened the door for the machine to enter our time, as it took full control of our advancements. By mid-century, time travel had become a marketable iPod application, with few international restrictions to limit its use. The only rule: don't change major events. Technology was now incapable of being used against itself. My present state of incarceration invalidates the nobility of my attempt. I had tried to go back in time, but I was unable to challenge the rise of the machine. Its timeline had been locked, and the RCMP drones were waiting for me. Time passes slowly now, as I sit in a riverfront prison where a casino resort once stood. Some of the centenarian inmates laugh at their own misfortune, as they recall the detention facilities of Guantanamo Bay. I imagine these primitive forms of confinement, faced in a hot steel sweatbox, and how it seemed inhumane at times. However, the newly acquired province of Cuba would surely be a tropical paradise in comparison to the tortures that I am about to endure when I awake from this chemically induced dreamscape in Motown.